You're welcome back to Breakfast Central. Reports have revealed that the federal government of Nigeria signed a $9 million lobbying contract with a United States firm to help manage Nigeria's reputation abroad, particularly amidst growing international criticism over security challenges at home. But instead of quelling concerns, the deal has sparked intense scrutiny. Critics argue the move exposes a diplomatic vacuum created by the prolonged absence of appointed ambassadors, leaving Nigeria increasingly dependent on expensive foreign lobbyists.
The contract, facilitated through a Washington-based firm with political connections, was reportedly intended to help counter negative narratives about the country, particularly allegations of targeted violence against communities. But critics say it raises deeper questions about diplomatic capacity, transparency, and national priorities. To help us unpack these developments and what they mean for Nigeria's foreign policy and credibility on the world stage, we're joined by global affairs analyst Ejike Okpa and former member of the House of Representatives and member of the ADC, Cedric Ogun. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I'll start with Mr. Ejike Okpa. This $9 million U.S. lobbying contract, it would seem from the reports we have, to clean Nigeria's image. Was that really necessary? Was it important for Nigeria to do that? And why would we have to pay that much, if at all?
I live in Texas, and, I ran for mayor, I ran for Congress and all of that stuff. I tell you, even the city of Dallas, they have to lobby the Texas legislature for certain things, to come to Dallas. But when you look at it, the case of Nigeria, $9 million compared to what some other countries spend, Mexico and Canada, two countries that are next door to America. If I tell you how much they spend, you'll be shocked. But the point is, like you said in your opening, since Tinubu got in there, no ambassador has been appointed. That's 2.5 years. So it makes you wonder if Nigeria is a significant country in Africa and America is a country they want to build relationship with or have relationship with, how come up until that now no ambassador has been appointed, but you single-handedly spending $9 million. If you look at what it takes to run the Nigerian embassy in Washington, D.C., it's not even that kind of money. So I think the question should be the legislature, the Nigerian National Assembly. How did they come about this? How did they select the company that is doing this? Because if you're going to lobby an American company, you have to be registered under what they call FARA, Foreign Agents Registration Act. So this company that is doing it, you have to go in and say, how long have they registered? You can Google their name. Go to FARA and see who is lobbying who. See, and then the Kaduna-based law firm that they said engages people. What is the relationship they have? There are a lot of questions that needs to be asked. And then Nigerians have to be convinced that at the end of the day, they're going to get, value for their money. But do you know when Obasanjo was there, Andrew Young, under his Good Works International, was paid a ton of money for the 8 years Obasanjo was there to lobby American government. What did Nigeria get for it? For you have to have a relationship. You have to have somebody who believes in your own success. And then they will come to say, hey, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. But you can pay somebody money, and at the end, they won't do anything for you. When Kabila was in Congo, he was paying a lobbying firm tons of money. You can Google it again. And at the end, what did DRC get? A lot of the African countries don't have strategy on how to engage America. They don't. Regardless of people who come here, get a PhD and run home, if you don't have effective relationship here, if you haven't been invested in and worked with Americans and know how to engage them, you won't get anything out of it. And that has eluded Nigeria, despite the fact that the first Nigerian that was recorded to have entered America in 1918, 4 years after amalgamation, was a Calabar man. And still Nigerians still come to America and behave as if they are strangers. That's more than a decade. They are Nigerian-born Americans, they are American Nigerians. And what are we doing out of this?
Thank you, Mr. Ejikopa. I'd like to bring Mr. Sergius Ogun into the conversation. Is lobbying not a fancy word for bribery? Because Nigerians will be wondering that if you're doing the work that you're supposed to do, if you're appealing to your own constituents, which are Nigerians, and if you're working towards making their lives better, you're securing their lives, aren't they the people you should be spending this money on bettering their lot? Why would Nigeria need to pay foreign lobbyists to manage its own image, especially when the country has a diplomatic relationship with the United States of America? It has embassies and diplomatic missions abroad. If we're going to lobby every other country that we have relationships with, then we'll be left with nothing.
Oh, okay. Well, I think lobbying on its own is not a bad thing. Especially in the US, you have companies registered, they are lobbyists, and they walk the corridors of Parliament and the White House. But this is the thing, even when I was in Parliament, I remember when they brought the PIB, the Petroleum Industry Bill then, the NNPC henchmen, the group CEO, okay, then was the CEO, and some other top men in NNPC were walking the corridors of the National Assembly. And I remember saying, even on national television, that when the ministers bring the budget or before the budget, if they walk the corridors of the National Assembly like that, the issues we usually have with the budget, we will not have. Because it gives you an opportunity to explain in details what you want or what you are bringing. And then the parliamentarians will also let you know where this might not fly or this is what we are thinking. So when you do that, by the time you bring the budget, we would have already agreed to a large extent. So the back and forth will not be there. So, and that is what I think is going on right now, because in America, this is recognized. And there are usually people that give money to elected parliamentarians or even the president. So it's something that is recognized and it's something that is done. But
what's the end goal, sir? What's the end goal at the end of the day?
Absolutely. Yeah, the end goal is to let the government know this is what we want, to sell your idea to the government. You know, this is what we want. But the challenge we have right now, like my brother that spoke earlier said, if you have an ambassador, you have the entire consulate. Okay, well, if you have an ambassador and their team, they will sell. They will be the ones doing the footwork right now to say, well, maybe there's genocide or there's no genocide, or, well, whatever is happening in Nigeria is not affecting only one religion. But this is the position of government. But that is not there. And we have said this, you know, so many times. We do not know why this government did not appoint ambassadors. I don't know what money they are saving. But right now, to be fair to say, this is not the first time this government is doing this.
All right.
If you remember when they were in opposition, they lobbied Obama's henchmen then to support the APC. And they said all manner of things about the then PDP and how they were weak, and they put so many things out there.
Okay.
And they sold the idea that by the time you bring a Muslim, that Muslim leader would be able to take on Boko Haram, and the Northerners would not see it as an affront.
Mr. Ogun, let's take a pause on that. I will come back and dig in a bit deeper. Let's go on a break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversations. Please stay with us. Come back. I will continue the conversation this morning. We have our guests, Mr. Sergius Ogun and Ejike Okpa, who are talking to us about the federal government's contract to, many would say it's to paint a positive image of our country. Mr. Ogun, you've said that this is not the first time that the federal government is doing this, but the question that we often hear, or we've heard Nigerians ask, is a government that has something to prove, like the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You show working, really. You don't have to pay that much. The argument is $9 million to paint a positive image about a work that is being done. The facts should speak for itself. We're in a country that is plagued by incredibly high levels of insecurity. Just a few days ago, yesterday we took the story about the ECWA church members who were kidnapped. Some of them had been released. There were others that were still in captivity. The reports had it that ransom was being paid for these people. So not only did the government fail them in the area of protecting them in the first instance, but the government also failed them in ensuring that they were returned back to their families, because they had to, from the reports that we're seeing, they had to pay ransom. So shouldn't the focus be on maybe putting that money into rehabilitating IDP camps, or just in areas that need money, as opposed to trying to paint a positive image about Nigeria to the United States?
Absolutely, I agree with you. I was just trying to lay the foundation over that, what this government is doing. So I have said it repeatedly. When this government was sworn in 2023, they started campaigning immediately for 2027. And what I said then, you could have put all that energy into governance. So if we are talking about $9 million paid to lobbyists, I think that is the official money paid to the firm. I think a whole lot more would have gone under the table, would have been paid under the table. And we've also heard before now that we actually have that this government or the president has a team, a lobbyist team in America working on against all those issues that were raised on his education and his background before the election. That they were, most of those releases that are supposed to be done by the American government were not done. So I give it to the president. He's a smart person, but hey, this is what we are facing in this country today. Governance. If you give attention to governance, most of these things will not come up. But the truth is, this is politics. People raised it, the American government are concerned, and you do not expect the government to hold their arms, knowing the kind of government we have in power today. So they will do what they are doing. Like I was saying earlier, they did this in the formation of APC. You know, when they sold the idea to the Obama government that a Muslim government, a Muslim president would handle the Boko Haram better. Actually, there's a guy that spoke on this on one of your sister stations then, that how they met Michelle Obama and how they heard from Obama directly that they would support a Muslim president. So if they did it and succeeded then, when they were not in government, why would they not do it now that they're in government? So it's a way of sending a message through the back channel. And I dare say, you say it's a lot of money. The second challenge is, was it appropriated for? They would not appropriate for this because they have something they call in government service-wide votes. They put all manner of things in there so that they will not have to go to the National Assembly. But in any case, like they say today, this is the rubber stamp National Assembly. If they had put it in the budget, it will go through.
Now, let me bring back Mr. Ejike Okpa in Texas into the conversation. I want us to dig deeper into the workings of these lobbying groups in Washington. Are there things that they can't be lobbied? Because if you look at the personality of Mr. Donald Trump, he seems to have his mind made up on a number of issues, and it's quite very hard to get into his head when he's made up his mind about certain decisions or issues he wants to take. And do the lobbyists, do they have what it takes to change the reality of what is on ground? Because earlier during our program, we did play the video of a Nigerian who testified in Congress about how his village was attacked, how they killed over 200 people. I mean, that he was in Washington giving that testimony to Congress. And if you pay lobbyists $9 million, they're not going to change that story. They're not going to alter the reality. So it makes their job a tall order. How do they walk around this sort of issues?
No, I want to make a distinction between, lobbying and bribing. When you're bribing, you don't want it to be disclosed. When you're lobbying, you want to be disclosed. In the case of America, you have to be registered. And like I said, if you go to the Foreign Agents Registration Act, you can see who is lobbying who. And lobbying is totally a different thing, like a media influence. If you want to launder the Nigerian image, what you got to do, you don't even have to engage Congress. You can go to major media outlets and you begin to buy what they call advertorial and begin to publish, issues. This is, when you do advertorial, it is your message that is being accepted by this media. It could be TV, it could be radio. You could have in areas where you have a lot of Nigerians, which is the New York, Texas, and California, those media, radio, whatever. And then for 1 month, you could be putting out messages that favor or influence Americans' perception about Nigeria. Now, when you start to lobby, it has to have a scope of work. What exactly is Nigerian hiring these guys to do? Do you want them to go in there and change their mind about America? Maybe there are certain laws or regulations that is negatively affecting Nigeria that you want them to change. So where is that law? Is the law already existing or you want to introduce new ones? How do you engage the legislative arm? What committee in Congress, the House and the Senate are you going to be interacting with? It is not the White House. So remember, the White House does certain things, at the executive level. So are you looking at the legislation, which is the law, and the White House has nothing to do with it? But if it is just for the president, then what you have to do is, again, it's an influence thing, because, you got to find somebody who can go in there, in a meeting, in a social gathering or a dinner event and say, Mr. President, hey, blah, 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 yada, yada. I can tell you what I have done when I have hosted the governor of Texas in my home. And some people, for whatever, because they know he's coming to my home, they can say, hey, we want to make a contribution to this. And I say, come on, when you come in, I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes. You can stand by and talk to him. That's not lobbying, but that's how you can reach the executive. So what your media people need to do, or members of Nigerian House of Assembly, is to demand a copy to see what the scope of assignment is. What are they supposed to lobby on behalf of Nigeria? At that time is when you're going to see, do they even have the capacity to do it? How long have these people, been in the lobbying business? Have they lobbied any other African country on behalf of America, or somebody just happens to have a relationship with somebody in Aso Rock and they say, hey, we can do this, and they already registered something, and all of a sudden, they are in the media lobbying. Like I said, when Obasanjo was there, Andrew Young, Good Works International was the company he was using, was doing a lot of lobbying for Nigeria, but what Nigeria get out of it for 8 years? Obasanjo couldn't even get, a state dinner at the White House. So it depends on what you want to do. Like I said earlier, if you want to launder Nigerian image, go to the media. If you want to get a legislative agenda that favor Nigerian regulations, like this visa restriction, you have to talk about how do you get that restriction to be removed, and that's why you engage the House, what is their name, State Department and the White House. And there's a tall order, because like when I heard this announcement, I said, this is medicine after death. If you reach many Nigerians in this country who have a relationship with some of the people in Washington, D.C., they could have done a better job for Nigeria. But this is one of those tribal things that Nigeria do, because you can never, it's hard for Nigerians to get away from tribalism. If you look at what Tinubu has done, look at the people that are in his cabinet. Where is the majority? It's not about the capacity to deliver. It's not about even the scope of understanding of what needs to be done. It is, hey, you're my village man, you're my tribesman, come on, let's go do this. And that is why Nigeria is suffering. Like I said, this is the biggest African country, and you still haven't developed a strategy that other African countries can copy and paste. It's not a very hard thing. It's not like in the 50s when Nigerians come here, grab their degree and go home. Now we have Nigerians who go to school, work in this system, are politically engaged, politically active, have a more better relationship engage them, ask them, hey, what would it take for you to do X, Y, Z for us? Without it costing a whole lot of money. Relationships, sometimes when you engage properly, it doesn't cost you money. You know, when the governor of Texas came to my home, which is his third time in 2025, I reached out to a lot of Nigerian governors and said, hey, come to my home. You don't even have to make it an official. And when I introduce you, then you can make it say, hey, Mr. Governor, we'd like to invite you to Nigeria. It will be easy for you to do. But if you go to Austin to approach him, it's not going to happen. Americans are a relationship-driven country. It has nothing to do with your degree in international relations. All those things Nigerians put out there to make it look like it's nothing. If you get somebody who knows somebody in America, something happens on your behalf.
Mr. Ejike, how do you respond to those who would say that this lobbying, it might in some way legitimize the claims, what they're trying to avoid, that going this extra mile to prove, you know, to pay for this huge sum would legitimize the claims of the Christian genocide that they're trying to avoid?
But you don't know whether the scope of service they are giving is to logic about that genocide. You don't know. Have you reviewed their engagement letter? That's what I'm saying. You guys need to, I don't know if you know whether Nigeria has the Freedom of Information Act, you know, where you can request something.
Yes,
if they do, your media house should, you know, through your own agents, you know, that interact with the National House of Assembly and request to see what is the scope of service. It is on the basis of the scope of service that you can start asking questions. But if it's just to speculate about them lobbying, you know, we can go from there to Z and we'll never narrow down to what it is they're going to do.
Yeah, let me also give a bit of details, just so there's a contract, right? And the agreement was signed by Oyetunji Olalekan-Teslim, who's the managing partner of Asta Legal, and Justin Peterson, who's the managing member of DCI Group. This was signed on the 17th of December 2025. According to the contract details, the American lobbying firm is expected to, quote open, assist the Nigerian government through Asta Legal in communicating its actions to protect Nigerian Christian communities and maintaining U.S. support in countering West African jihadist groups and other destabilizing elements. And it was agreed that this contract would be automatically renewed for another 6 months.
So this just it's a one-item thing. It's just about the genocide. Is that what it is?
Sorry?
I said it's a single-item scope of service, specifically about the killing of Christians in Nigeria.
Exactly.
Okay, so the question needs to be asked is, okay, are you lobbying the American to change a restriction that affects this stuff? Affects Nigeria on this, or are you just lobbying them to say there's no genocide in Nigeria?
Well, I guess it's them that will be able to answer what exactly the.
But I'd like to bring
that.
Mr. Sergius Ogun back into the conversation. As a former lawmaker and a member of the opposition ADC, your party has issued a statement condemning this through your National Publicity Secretary. I also want to know if there is any issue that arises, any legal issue, knowing that this was made possible by the Office of the National Security Advisor. Do these sorts of things come under his purview?
I don't know, I heard everything you said, but the biggest challenge, okay, just to put it in context, the guy in that photograph on the right-hand side of my screen is Osemige, is a brother from Edo State, and who was an aspirant, a gubernatorial aspirant. Yes, the guy on the right was a gubernatorial aspirant of the Labour Party in Edo State in the 2024 elections. So we were all gubernatorial aspirants together in Labour Party. So it's a good thing that they are also going in there to the capital in the US to also give our own perspective of what is happening here. So, yeah, talking about, I said earlier, that the $9 million, like you just read out, is for a single item. But we are aware that these people have a contract with other lobbyists not to bring anything negative about this president or to take it to the White House. And like I will agree completely that if that money is spent back home on some of these issues, we would have solved the problems. So going forward, we should tax this government. Tax this government to do the right thing. Because everything about this government is just the next election. They are not concerned about you and I. They are not concerned about the country. Win the next election. APC came in with so much propaganda because they just want to grab the power. Now you have the power. You cannot rule with propaganda. Hit the ground running. So this is the biggest challenge we have. Yes, what I will also tell my party, the opposition, the APC started this in 2013, 2014 when they were in opposition. Like I was saying earlier, they took up the issue, but I heard that then the northern group was saying that it would go to ICC to charge, I did then the Lieutenant General Hijirika, who was the chief of army staff, to say he was killing the northerners and Muslims. So they took this single line item and went to America and lobbied the guys around Obama. That's how they got Obama to support Buhari then. That if you have a Muslim president, it will quell this whole thing. So this is what is playing out again. So my advice is would be now then we didn't have social media like this. The opposition also should have a group there to also sell our own narrative.
Now, Mr. Ogu, I want
to do this.
I would like to follow up with you on this question. Nigeria is a sovereign nation at the end of the day. You're a former lawmaker that served Nigeria. And listening to this conversation, it almost seems like America is a party. It's an extension or an appendage, or Nigeria is an appendage of the United States of America. Granted, the USA is the most powerful country in the world, but we seem to be more focused. You know, both opposition, the ruling party, everyone wants to be in America's good books. We almost even forget the people that elected them into power. We want to, it's almost like we want to show who has access to the big brother and to this United States of America. Where is our sovereignty in all of this? When are we going to look inwards and say, you know what, we're a country, we're the giants of Africa. We do recognize the importance of partnerships, but let's try and fix things instead of just running to the United States at the slightest opportunity, inconvenience. Yes.
Well, America is Uncle Sam. They are big, and they came in here. They sent, what's his name now, Trump, sent just one tweet, got this president to remove all the billboards, all the campaign billboards from the airport to the city gate and from, what's it called now, the 3rd Mainland Bridge. So they got the attention of the president of America. So, but that's by the way. In diplomacy, all countries do it. When I was in the National Assembly, ambassadors and people from the embassy, from different embassies, they come to the National Assembly. They talk to us on issues. There are bills and motions that we are sponsoring. They know when that affects their country, they send people to us. There was once I brought a bill on plastics that passed, the plastics, using the plastic bottles and papers and all. A team came that met a colleague of mine that was no longer in the assembly. He was in the 8th assembly, was not in the 9th assembly. And there were a group of Americans and some EU people, representing big companies. The guy invited me for a dinner in his house, and they were all there, basically saying that this will not fly and all that. I said, well, we have done our bit in the House of Reps. It's gone to the Senate. So if you want to lobby anybody at all, you should go to the Senate. So this is always done behind the scene. So it's not just a case of those in government going to Washington and oppositions also going there. Yeah, well, I want to use the word Americans are bullies, but today where they stand, they can determine who's going to be the next president of Nigeria. Absolutely. Like they did in 2015. So it would be wise to go there and lobby them. But that's what they say they are not.
So what happens to millions of Nigerian voters, and why do we even waste our time with INEC if the United States can decide who becomes president of Nigeria?
Well, we don't have to like it. This happens all the time, all over the world. Like I said, if you have you listened to Jonathan? Jonathan said then, absolutely. Okay, I don't know how much time we have. I am in the private sector. I was in the private sector before I went to serve in the House of Representatives. on the day of my election in 2015, an American that used to buy a lot of equipment from called me. We talk a lot, we chat a lot on emails then. 2015, we didn't have a lot of social media like this. So he called me and asked me, how's the election going? I said, going very well. I'm very sure I'm going to win. We're about to count the votes. This was about 5:30 p.m. my time. And he said to me, the information we have is that Nigeria is going to have a new government. And I laughed at him. I said, no, that's not correct. This is Saturday. The earliest we're going to know the result will be Monday or Tuesday. And he told me, well, Sergius, that's the information we have here. And what happened? So the Western world were against Jonathan. That's why maybe to a large extent, Jonathan didn't want to fight the outcome of the election. Yes, we will vote, but the big powers, when they support you, they will have their way. That's just how it works in international diplomacy.
Okay, I think we'll be wrapping up the conversation, but let's get final thoughts from Mr. Ejike Okpa regarding this. How do you think we should proceed?
I see you have a big grin on your face.
Going forward. And I'm sure you have something to say in response to what Mr. Ogun had said regarding the U.S.'s influence on Nigerian elections. Really strong claims there.
Look, no country is in isolation. Interrelationships, diplomatic and regional and all of that stuff. You just have to find out which country you can align with in order to get your own agenda carried out. America needs something from Nigeria. Nigeria needs something from America. The point is, when you spend money as a government entity, you are looking at what they call cost-benefit analysis. When you are doing an investment, is return on and return off. So it is hard to quantify what Nigeria is going to get out of this lobbying effort. So, if it is to change the perception of Nigeria, is that the best way to do it? What if you are going to Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Houston Chronicle, LA Times, and issued a center page, and paid money and say, hey, send this, You could have reached many Americans, influenced them, the perception, and you could now put information there for them to go Google and read up, as opposed to going in and doing and picking something when at the end of the day, the legislation, you're not going to get it done. The White House, you're not going to get it, get them influenced because the president has some perception about Tinubu and the president has perception about what has gone on in Nigeria. So if it's the American people you are trying to influence, you don't need a lobbying firm, you need the media to do it. There's a show called, A Wheel of Fortune. You could have gone over there. Nigeria could have gone over there and sponsored some, trivial and Nigeria. And say, if you win this, you come visit Nigeria, blah, blah, blah. That TV program has millions of people that watch it. So again, this is one of those things, that I call medicine after death. But in terms of money-wise, it's not a whole lot of money. Of course, when you change it in Naira, it's like you need a truck to move that money. But in terms of American money, $9 million, it's not even something anybody can blink at. Because if you go Google what Mexico and Canada used to lobby America in order to have the trade relationship they have, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
All right.
So, but they're getting something. So the thing is, the Nigerian people, like Mr. Ogun said, is how was this money appropriated? Was it already in the budget? Was this one of those reactions? They're going to say, okay, the president can do it, go do it.
All right, Mr. Okpa, we have to wait to continue to follow this story and get the pulse of Nigerians, as well as expect some form of accountability and transparency from our government. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sergio Ogun and Mr. Ejike Okpa.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.